right, the first question is from David OV31. I find it fascinating how you are still able to move Windows 7 disk for what seems like good money. Microsoft don't even support it anymore, so the security risk would be huge. Do you know what people are doing with them? I don't.
Okay, so why are people still buying Windows 7 on eBay? And there are a couple of reasons. One is that they are collectors, and they're just collecting versions of Windows, and that's fine. But a lot of people are still using Windows 7 even though it is not supported by Microsoft. The reason why they're still using Windows 7 is because they like Windows 7. I'm one of those people who loves Windows 7 and the interface of Windows 7 because it looked more like classic Windows rather than the new stuff, because a lot of people were turned off by the interface of Windows 8 because they had changed everything and they had really everything up, and nobody liked Windows 8 and the interface that they used for Windows 8 unless you had a touchscreen laptop. Then it made more sense, but those were few and far between when Windows 8 came out. And then Windows 10 came out, and they adopted a totally different interface again when people just loved the old stuff. They liked the simplicity of the old interfaces, like the start menu, and it was what people were used to. So people were still using Windows 7 even though Windows 10 had adopted something that was a little bit more traditional, but it still was not the same. So a lot of people are still using Windows 7 for those reasons. Now, should they be using Windows 7? Absolutely not. It has not been supported for several years, and because it's not supported, it's not receiving any more security updates, which leaves you vulnerable to a lot of attacks by viruses and especially ransomware. Ransomware is actually a big problem with older operating systems because they're using security holes that aren't being patched anymore. And this was actually proven when a bunch of medical facilities and hospitals got hit with ransomware, and all their patient data was locked up and encrypted, and they actually had to pay the ransom to get the encryption key to get all their records back. So yeah, that is something you do not want to deal with. So if you're using Windows 7, I'm just going to have to say you should be upgrading, and that's not something that you should be running anymore, at least for mainline production. Another reason why a lot of people run Windows 7 is to run some older games that aren't compatible with Windows 10. And a lot of those people aren't even connecting Windows 7 to the internet, so it's not really a problem there. I'm one of those people. I have a Windows 7 laptop. It never goes online. I use it just to play those games. So as long as I don't connect that online, that is a perfectly acceptable use of Windows 7. And that's a little caveat to not using Windows 7. It's an exception, not the rule, but for an online machine, you really should be using something more up to date, such as Windows 10, which will be supported for a couple more years at least, or a Linux operating system. Now, as far as older operating systems go, there is actually a huge bucket for older operating systems, such as older versions of Windows on eBay, especially sealed copies. Now, a lot of people are buying things like Windows 3.1 on floppy disks because a lot of their old floppy disks are wearing out due to use and age. And that is a huge problem with older operating systems such as Windows 3.1, Windows 3, etc., because they're on floppy disks. And these are getting old, and they're wearing out. So people are trying to acquire different copies of Windows 3 and Windows 3.1 and Windows 1 and 2, etc., because they want these versions to run on their old hardware that they are maintaining. Because a lot of people maintain older hardware like old IBM computers, and they do things like replace the capacitors on the board to keep them working because they want to run these computers. They are computer hobbyists, and it's awesome to do that as a hobby. I'm one of those people. However, when it comes to sealed box copies, a lot of collectors want them. They want them bad. I mean, Windows 3.1 sells, I think, for like $200 sealed. And when it comes to Windows 95, if you can find a floppy disk version of Windows 95 that's sealed in the big box, those go for around $300 a piece. So that is an item to keep an eye out for. Now, there are other older operating systems that sell for quite a bit of money if they're sealed in box, like OS2, which is an IBM operating system that was Windows compatible back in the day. A lot of people might not know what OS2 is. I had a computer back in the day that ran OS2 that I grew up with. But those can sell for quite a bit of money as well. And Windows 98, if you can find them sealed, especially like in big boxes and stuff, those can sell for quite a bit of money. So it all depends on the operating system, but a lot of collectors want these sealed copies of these older operating systems, and they're willing to pay out the ass for them. So keep an eye out for older sealed copies of Windows and OS2. And I think that there was like an OS2 server edition that was selling for over $400. So these type of older operating systems, if you can get them for the right price. And that is all I have to say today, and I will see you in the next video, and take care.